All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and man, I have a few updates today. 3 major topics. First of all, we're going to talk about what Jayden Daniels did this offseason, man. It is absolutely crazy. We're going to dive into that. Of course, also the next topic, Terry McLaurin and the Washington Commanders are apparently not close on a new deal. We're going to break down what Adam Schefter broke down on ESPN earlier today. And then also, there's an explanation as to why the Commanders are ready to get rid of Brian Robinson from a local news reporter, radio guy, all of that type of stuff. So we're going to dive into all that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm with the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. And of course, man, it's game day, y'all. Tonight, the game starts at 8 p.m. I'll be live streaming starting at 7 p.m. I'm starting an hour early so we can dive into some of our predictions. We can talk about some of the things that have happened since the last time we had that preseason game against the Patriots, because that was 10 days ago. A lot has changed. Terry McLaurin's pulling up the practice, all kinds of things. So we'll have plenty to talk about for an hour before the game even starts. And then when the game starts, you know I'm doing my live play-by-play analysis, breaking down what I'm seeing, who's playing well, who's not. And it's starters versus starters, or at least for a couple of series in this upcoming preseason game. So even Jayden Daniels is playing tonight. So make sure you pull up for that. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so let's start with the whole Jayden Daniels update. Well, Jayden Daniels apparently spent the offseason improving his mechanics after scouting himself for weaknesses. He was asked, what are the results of months of monotonous repetition? The exact quote goes, quote, more accurate, can throw farther for sure, and then the velocity. So if I need to let one rip so defenders aren't able to pick it off because of how fast the ball is traveling, it all ties into that for sure, unquote. But we got to do a deep dive into this, man, because Nikki Javala is the one that wrote this article for The Athletic and everything like that. We're going to do a deep dive into that. And even before then, Chris Russell, the local radio reporter that is going to give us the Brian Robinson update for the third part of this video, he said, have never been around a quarterback that works harder and more diligent. And that even includes Kirk Cousins. A coach's dream to have the work ethic and football IQ that this guy has. I know Adam Peters and Dan Quinn definitely feel like they hit the lottery, but at the same time, this is what they scouted in the pre-draft process. There are reports that they would have even taken Jayden Daniels over Caleb Williams if Jayden Daniels if they had the #1 overall pick. You know, a lot of people don't necessarily believe him, but I feel like a lot of these traits that we're seeing from Jayden Daniels, the reason that he has this A++ potential, you know, if you play Madden or 2K or anything like that, it's those guys with the super potential. They're just going to keep getting better and better and better each season. You know, I'm pretty sure they scouted for those traits. Everything else comes with it, you know, arm talent, mobility, and all that type of stuff. It's great as well. It's great that he already has that, but the constant reevaluation of oneself. I love the fact that Jayden Daniels is one of his own harshest critics. That was scouted in the pre-draft process. That's what they bought in on. That's the reason they took him 2nd overall, I'm pretty sure. And so, shouts out to Nikki Javala. She just wrote this article earlier today. And she said, Jayden Daniels is mine. And just go ahead and give y'all the heads up. I'm only reading like maybe a third of this article. There's going to be so much of this article that's still left out there for y'all to go and actually read a lot of the finer details and smaller things. So I would highly urge y'all to go check that out. It is called Jayden Daniels spent the offseason scouting himself. It's already paying off. Again, I'm only reading parts of this article. But she said Jayden Daniels' mind is wired for improvement constantly. He's always looking for another edge, a throw that needs to be sharper, a play that needs to be fine-tuning, a tendency that can be eliminated. He seeks betterment even when he's just been crowned the best in his class after completing a historic rookie season. The best of all time, might I add. A few days before the Super Bowl in New Orleans, Daniels, sporting a custom suit, designer glasses, and a diamond chain, stepped off the stage at NFL Honors after being named the league's Offensive Rookie of the Year. As reporters peppered him with questions about the award in his record-breaking rookie season, Daniels said repeatedly that he was eager to get back to training. Not chill, not relax, not enjoy this award, not hang with family. No, I need to get back to work so I can get even better. I just won Offensive Rookie of the Year. I don't want people catching up to me. I'm trying to keep improving as they're improving, and that way there's always this gap between me and them. I'm pretty sure that's not the exact reason, but you know what I'm saying? That has to be at least one of the reasons. Like, he's going to stay on top of his game and keep constantly improving. Nobody can ever catch up. He also said, quote, "It means a lot just to be able to come in and have some success as a rookie, but I'm looking forward to building on top of this. I have to close the curtain on the rookie season and get ready for year 2, unquote." I love that too. Like, what happened that rookie season, that was cool. You know what I'm saying? Maybe that's something I can reflect on once I'm retired way down the line. But right now, my main focus is on how am I going to get better for year 2. I'm going to just basically act like year 1 didn't even happen, and I got to go out there and earn it again every single season. And after leading the Commanders to a 12-5 record in the NFC Championship game in his first NFL season, Daniel spent most of the NFL offseason on the field and in the film room. His months-long self-scout and retooling produced noticeable changes as early as OTAs in May that have continued into training camp. Some are physical, he put a few pounds of muscle, many are mechanical, meant more to improve the finer parts of his game, and others are mental, the unquantifiable part of quarterbacking that Daniels has embraced. Dan Quinn said, quote, "I've always felt he had real control of things, and we work at the line of scrimmage a lot, and he's really comfortable in that. He was always somebody that was really on his details. What I'm seeing now is just the accuracy, the footwork, so more of his body mechanics that he wanted to emphasize. I see that coming through in his play," unquote. And that was Dan Quinn back in June. Rarely is there time during a season to do an in-depth self-analysis, so Daniels, at the urging of a veteran linebacker, Bobby Wagner, dug deep into his own game over the offseason. Daniels told The Athletic, quote, "My main focus was on how I can improve mechanically from year 1 to year 2. You kind of just see your tendencies and what you think some people will try to use against you going into the next season, so that's something I learned from Bobby Wagner," unquote. So shouts out to Wagner for helping him. Bobby Wagner's seen everything. He's been there, done that at every single level against all of the great quarterbacks since he's entered the league a long time ago. And he's probably, telling Daniels like, hey, from a defensive standpoint, now that we've noticed that these are your tendencies, this is what you typically like to do in certain situations, this is what you didn't like to do in certain situations your rookie year, you may want to switch these things up. You may want to improve in this way. So having Bobby Wagner on the team again is so invaluable. Like, you can't even put a price tag on that. Not only what he provides to you as a linebacker, but as a guy, even just a mentor for the linebackers behind him and around him, of course, even including Frankie Louvu, and then also what he's doing for Jayden Daniels. I mean, it's just, you can't put a price on how valuable he is just to Jayden Daniels alone. And then also, another part of this article, Daniels returned to California, where for years he worked with quarterback coaches Taylor Kelly and Ryan Porter. With Kelly, Daniels went through his own rookie year film to find tendencies that opponents could use against him. People talking about a sophomore slump. Come on, man. People don't do this type of stuff here. Their broad goal was to calibrate the details of his play behind the line of scrimmage, his maneuvering in the pocket, keeping his eyes down the field instead of dropping them to the rush, breaking a would-be sack, and maintaining control to extend plays. They zeroed in on his footwork, an aspect of Jayden Daniels' game that was already more developed than many other first-year quarterbacks, but they wanted to continue to improve that. And again, I'm not going to read this entire article. That was like maybe a third of it. If that, maybe like 1/4, honestly. I urge y'all to please go read that article, man. And shouts out to Reg Manuel. He brings up a great point after reading the article. Jayden Daniels scouting himself in order to improve reminds me so much of what Dan Quinn did when he first became the head coach of the Commanders, or even leading up to it, doing his extensive self-review after being fired from Atlanta. Just another sign that this is an excellent pairing between Jayden Daniels and Dan Quinn. Who knows what the results will be, but I have no concerns about the preparation, and I love that, man. You can live with the results as long as you know that the preparation was as good as humanly possible, and this is the type of team that has that. We'll see if we end up winning the Super Bowl this year or anytime soon, but you cannot deny the process, man. Again, the fact that Jayden Daniels has that same genetic makeup that even Dan Quinn had immediately after he was fired from Atlanta, which is something that I'm pretty sure other coaches may have done, but I've never heard of it. Remember after Dan Quinn got fired from them sorry little Falcons, it was really more so the Falcons and how they're cursed than Dan Quinn himself. So, I'm happy that Dan Quinn didn't keep that loser attached to him. But that's what happens when you head coach them sorry little Falcons. But either way, Dan Quinn, after being fired, called anybody and everybody who would answer his phone call and was like, what could I have done better as a head coach for the Falcons? Yes, we went to a Super Bowl. and they lost it in a really funny way that I still enjoy to this day. But, you know, even after going to a Super Bowl, which is a pretty huge achievement, most head coaches never even make it there. And even then, after getting fired, he was like, what in any way? Even Logan Paulson confirmed this for himself. And Logan Paulson was never like the star of the show or anything like that. I love Logan Paulson, but he was never like this top tier tight end in the NFL. That just shows the range of Dan Quinn speaking to not only every coach, but every player possible as well. Not even just starting level players, even the backups, even the depth guys, the rotational guys. He's calling anybody to see what could I have done better in any single way. Be completely honest with me, 100% transparent, no matter how small, no matter how big. And you see how he's doing such a great job for the Commanders because he's probably adjusted a lot of those things. And the fact that Dan Quinn was able to draft a quarterback with that same extreme self-evaluation technique and work ethic within just his first year being the head coach here is nothing short of like crazy circumstance and a miracle, man. It's insane. Now moving on to Terry McLaurin and the Commanders. So Adam Schefter went on ESPN earlier today and said that the Commanders and Terry McLaurin are in a status quo situation where he's basically returning to practice because that would have happened anyway, even if they weren't closer on the deal. And then he also confirmed, yes, they are not close to a deal at this time. Now, he didn't necessarily like specifically say that they haven't gotten any closer at all, but they're definitely not close. And he continued to report a lot of the reports that we've been hearing. Maybe this is starting to become like a real thing. Maybe this is true because we're hearing a lot of different sources saying somewhat of the same thing. Terry McLaurin is at least asking for DK Metcalf money or more, and the Commanders are willing to give him significantly less than that. And there was that report that came out, what was it, yesterday or something, or a couple of days ago, that no team around the NFL is willing to give Terry McLaurin $30 million a year or more. So no team in the NFL, including the Commanders, is willing to give Terry whatever he's asking for right now. And that is scary, but it also makes you look at Terry like, come on, dog. Like, and again, like I've already said, I've already laid my grievances with his agent, Buddy Baker. I think a lot of the problems we're having right now is the fact that Buddy Baker is his agent. Buddy Baker's treating Terry McLaurin like he's the meal ticket. He's trying to utilize and leverage Terry McLaurin's potential new huge contract that they want to sign as a way for him to gain credibility in the agent space so he can go on to represent even better clients or other good clients. Because right now Terry McLaurin is by far his biggest client. It's not even close. And you know, maybe he has nothing to deal with it, but they both happen to be hometown friends back from Indianapolis. So I don't know. I just feel like Buddy Baker doesn't have Terry McLaurin's best interest at heart. I feel like a lot of this is selfish from Buddy Baker's side, but again, I've already done way deeper dives into that for minutes on, several videos talking about that. I'm not going to talk about that here, but it sounds like Terry McLaurin's going to play on his current deal in this 2025 season. That's what it's definitely looking like. And then the Commanders, if it comes to it, may just end up franchise tagging him going into the 2026 season. So Terry McLaurin probably is not going anywhere, even if they can't find a way to get a contract done before week 1 or before this regular season ends. And is that what we're trying to do right here, Terry? I'm asking him, like, is that what you want to do? Because that's honestly in the cards for you. If things keep going the way that they are. I keep telling y'all, the Commanders are looking at Terry McLaurin with their arms folded like, you make a move. We don't have to budge. We don't have to do nothing. You're going to end up playing this season because there's no way you hold out this season, skip a whole season, and then now your contract gets foregoed into the next year, and now you're 31, going into your age 31 season asking for big money. That's only going to hurt your leverage even worse than it already is. And honestly, the Commanders are lucky that we have built a real Super Bowl contender so quickly, because Terry more than likely wouldn't feel so much self-pressure on his own end to return to this team as soon as possible and be even willing to play under this current deal at all if this team was just in the range of greatness that like Terry never felt. And he's probably afraid of how he could end up never being a part of a team this ready to compete for a Super Bowl. Von Miller pulled up to ring chase with us. This team even just feels like, from the inside out, from even people outside looking in, this team feels like it's primed to try to at least go on a Super Bowl run, to at least try. And especially while Terry McLaurin's young enough to be a strong contributor and not just some charity case roster spot holder. Shouts out. You see Terry over there, shouts out to him. He can't play that well anymore, but at least he's here in spirit. You know what I'm saying? While Terry is still young enough to be one of the defining reasons why we potentially win a Super Bowl, he may want to go ahead and jump on this train before it takes off without him. If this team was just a perceived playoff contender at best, maybe Terry probably wouldn't be back in this ramp-up process to prepare for the season already. But I'm pretty sure Adam Peters being able to say, all right, go ahead and miss on the Super Bowl chance if you want to, is helping Adam Peters' leverage even more than he naturally has with the fact that Terry McLaurin is currently under contract and will be 30 years old very soon. And shouts out to Oblon. He said, each day without a deal, it feels more like Terry just plays out the final year and the team revisits things in the offseason. I'm telling you, we're probably going to be in this same situation next offseason. I hope not. I'm really hoping we find some common ground before week 1. But this Adam Schefter report this morning, I'm not very optimistic about it, man. It sounds like Terry is dug in. And of course, the Commanders are dug in. Again, it's not even just a Commanders thing. From several reports that we've heard, that's just the NFL market for Terry McLaurin right now. The Commanders aren't just this weird, oddball, outlier team that's just downplaying Terry and trying to lowball him. No, everybody around the end. Now, granted, they could be colluding together on purpose, to fight against Terry. But there's all of these reports that no team in the NFL is willing to pay Terry McLaurin $30 million a year or more right now. We just discussed that a couple of days ago or last night or something like that. And it sounds like, I don't know exactly what the Commanders are willing to pay him exactly. We just keep hearing significantly less. We're hearing somewhere around $28 million. That's probably what the market is for Terry McLaurin in the NFL right now, no matter the team. There could be that one team that wants to slime out the Commanders, sneak behind them, and then willing to pay Terry McLaurin a little bit more than everybody else is willing to pay. We haven't heard any reports of that. We haven't heard not one team, they're willing to pay Terry McLaurin the asking price that he wants, So it just looks like Terry McLaurin, sadly, and I love Terry, but it looks like that Buddy Baker got him looking crazy out here like you're asking for money that no NFL team is willing to pay you, let alone the Commanders. Don't make it sound like it's just the Commanders being bullies and being evil or something like that. That's just your market, basically. And then shouts out to DC Sports Dre. He said Terry got to bring it in this year, even if he's not planning on a new deal. I know some worry about the lack of motivation, but that doesn't serve Terry well to have any drop-off statistically at all, especially at this age with a price tag that decreases every year. Like, come on, man. Like, he'll just be in this same situation next year with being 1 year older and potentially having a worse season if he were to be less motivated and, be a little grumpy and moping around because he doesn't have the money that he wants and stuff like that. Sadly for him, not only does he need to show up to work, he needs to show up to work with a smile and a pep in his step if he wants any chance of getting the money that he really, really wants. That's the sad part of this. That's why Adam Peters and Commanders have all of the leverage, not just most of it, all of it. And then Disco even brought up the point that I agree. I'm sure that he'll be concerned about his targets this season at this rate. Yeah, if Terry McLaurin goes into week 1, goes into this regular season without a new deal, he's going to be demanding the ball a lot. He's going to want a lot of targets and a lot of touches. Now, does he just automatically deserve them because he's Terry McLaurin? I can see that argument. But the thought of increasing his targets so that he could potentially get a better contract later down the line, imagine Jayden Daniels in the middle. Like Terry McLaurin said, hey, man, give me the ball back. Give me the ball more so I can get more money next offseason. And then Adam Peters whispers in Jayden Daniels' ear later on, like, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. We're not trying to pay him this ridiculous money. You can see it like all of it. So I just don't even want this situation to even get to that point, hopefully. And then also, moving on to the last topic, Brian Robinson-wise, local radio host Chris Russell, who we brought up earlier, shared news surrounding Brian Robinson Jr. and basically explained why the Commanders are willing to trade him and why they're shopping him around. He said that this goes back to last season. This is not even a recent offseason thing. This is last season where they were like, man, this Brian Robinson guy just ain't it. Quote, they have been out on Brian Robinson since down the stretch, especially since before that Detroit playoff game. They were not happy with his aggression, his timid reading of keys getting uphill, unquote. It was a bunch of stuff that he laid out. And basically, the Commanders are sick and tired of Brian Robinson's running style. It's not even necessarily anything physical, and we can talk about all of the physical limitations that he has as far as speed, explosion, agility, and stuff like that. I like Brian Robinson, but they're apparently more upset with how he plays, like the mental aspects of his game, his lack of aggression, his lack of vision, and his inability to go uphill. He wants to run left and right, east to west rather than north and stuff like that. So they're probably just sick of that, and he's had 3-4 years to show that he can work on some of those things and improve those things, or even just last season alone, going from week 1, since Adam Peters and Dan Quinn got here and Cliff Kingsbury was his offensive coordinator, Anthony Lynn run game coordinator, all of that stuff. He's had since week 1 all the way through that Detroit Lions playoff game. And even throughout that entire process, he never showed at least enough. I'm pretty sure he's improved. I'm not going to sit here and act like he hasn't improved at all. Again, I like Brian Robinson, but he hasn't improved enough, or he hasn't shown at least the effort or the signs that he will be able to improve enough to where they can trust him as their RB1. Again, we can talk about Brian Robinson's physical limitations forever, especially comparing him to JCM's physical advantages and his ceiling. But even just outside of that, just the way that he runs the ball, the way that he chooses to run the ball, his running style is something that the Commanders don't agree with. So there's like a whole philosophy disagreement and separation here. There's a whole mentality part, and that is very ugly. That makes this situation way worse than what I thought it already was. I didn't know that they felt that way about him. Shouts out to Sidonia Ave. He said, running back is probably one of the most replaceable positions in football. So I don't see us getting anything more than probably a 6th rounder. I would honestly be surprised even if it's more than that. Like I said, I think we might end up getting a 1942 11th round pick, but we'll see. At the end, they probably believe they can get the same production with Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols, especially with JCM as your feature RB1 and Austin Eckler as your RB2. Those are all great points. Shouts out to Rio Robinson. He brought up the point that, man, Joe Mixon is nice. Basically, he's better than Brian Robinson, obviously, right? We all agree on that. He was traded to Houston for a 224th pick in the NFL draft. They aren't getting anything more for Brian Robinson. Hope this helps. And that's always been my question. Like, what could you possibly even get for Brian Robinson in a trade? And shouts out to Rio Robinson. I feel like that's a great comparison because Joe Mixon is definitively better than Brian Robinson, easily. But at the same time, he got traded for a 7th round pick. The Cincinnati Bengals gave up their star, granted injury prone, but star running back to the Texans for a 7th round pick. That killed the running back trade market. Maybe if Joe Mixon goes for a 5th, then maybe you can make the argument that Brian Robinson can go for a 6th or a 7th. But if Joe Mixon is going for a 7th, I have no idea what you can get in return for Brian Robinson. And just to let you know, Cincinnati Bengals ended up using that 7th round pick on Dejon Anthony, and I'm not here to judge whether that guy's good or not, but I don't even remember that name. So Joe Mixon basically got turned into Dejon Anthony. That should tell you the value of what running backs are going for right now. And again, Brian Robinson isn't even as good as Joe Mixon, especially when Joe Mixon is healthy. But granted, Brian Robinson will give you a good 10 weeks of health compared to Joe Mixon, where he's injury prone on and off. So maybe you could argue that Brian Robinson is the more dependable, healthier, better, your availability is your best ability type of guy. But when both healthy, Joe Mixon is definitively better than Brian Robinson. And then shouts out to Seawall Sports. She pointed out that going into this preseason game later on tonight, that again, I will be live streaming. Again, we all know the running backs are a position group to watch in Commanders land. Another group to keep your eyes on, defensive line, specifically the interior. I'm super excited about that. And then Mark Phillips also said, and so just to remind y'all, pay attention to this running back room, man. How much does Brian Robinson play? And then if JCM just plays, not only how much does he play, how well does he play? Does he validate all of this stuff that's going on right now with the Brian Robinson saga? And then Mark Phillips said, if the Commanders are determined to get rid of B.Rob and can't find any trade partners, I hope they cut him as soon as possible to give him a chance to land somewhere that he actually prefers to be. And I completely agree with that. Because again, you're not going to be able to trade him for any draft picks. Just go ahead and give up on that. At best, a 7th round pick. And then what do you plan on doing with that 7th round pick anyway? And so, yeah, I agree. You might as well just go ahead and cut him early so he has the best chance to land with a team and show what he can do, maybe in the final preseason game for that team, or at least give him like 2 to 3 weeks to prepare with that new team going into the season or whatever. I prefer personally to keep Brian Robinson. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is either cut him early or don't cut him at all, because I prefer to keep him. I definitely want him here because I don't want to be just a Ja'Cory Cross-Merit injury away from our running back group being Austin Eckler, Chris Rodriguez, and Jeremy McNichols trying to go on a Super Bowl run. Like, that scares me. I'm not going to lie. As much as we doubt Brian Robinson, come on, man. We have to realize that running back trio right there is not very pretty trying to go on a Super Bowl run. Brian Robinson would be a useful addition to that group. You know what I'm saying? Just assuming that he weren't on the team. And so I would prefer to keep Brian Robinson. Honestly, again, I don't want to be one JCM injury away from our running back group going right back to being mid. I like Chris Rodriguez's talent. I believe in Austin Eckler, but come on, man. And so either keep him or get rid of him soon. But don't wait till the last second, man, and do that man dirty. Please don't. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting every video. Salute to y'all, man. If you made it this far in the video, I salute you and thank you personally. Make sure y'all stiff arm that like button on the way out. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about the whole Jayden Daniels part of this video and how he's self-scouting and how he's made up with the same genetics of a Dan Quinn, the same work ethic, just insane stuff right there, man. Like, how does it feel to have one of them ones that, if anything, he's only going to keep getting better because we see it from the work ethic side of things. Also, let me know how you feel about this whole Terry McLaurin situation. What is like the worst case scenario, all of that type of stuff of how that could end up going down. Do you think we'll just ultimately end up, he'll play on this year contract and then get franchise tag going into 2026? Let me know how y'all feel. Do you think we'll get a deal done by week 1? And then also, let me know how you feel about this whole Brian Robinson situation and why, reportedly, again, it's up to you to trust the actual source, but let me know how you feel about why the Commanders are trying to shop Brian Robinson. I mean, is that more so a negative towards Brian Robinson? It is a compliment to JCM. That's interesting. But let me know all of that in the comment section. Leave a like on the way out. I'm going to catch y'all later. Again, I will be live streaming tonight's game, so make sure you pull up for that. I'm out.